Hello and welcome again. If you're wondering why it's been so long, life happened, okay? Life happened. I had no time to film anything. So we're back here again. It's currently midnight, don't judge me. This is when inspiration came and when I decided to finally film this video, which is about all the books I've read in 2021 so far and how it happened that I got back into reading, because I've always been a massive bookworm, like my whole life. I've been a bookworm. I've been reading so much. I literally cannot remember a time in my life when I would not read anything at all. Like, even if I wasn't reading books, I was probably reading fan fiction or anything like that. Like, I was always reading something. But there's been periods in my life, especially recently, especially at university, when I was not reading anything. In comparison to how much I used to read as a child and as a teenager, like, it was just nothing. I wasn't reading anything really. But I'm back to it, and I'm back to it. And the way I did it is that I started reading a chapter a day. And that honestly changed my life, because at university I wasn't really reading anything. I was so busy. I don't know, like, reading kind of became a secondary thing. Like, I didn't have time to do it. And then in quarantine, I started reading again. I finished a book that I started a long time ago, which is Game of Thrones, and then I read Normal People by Sally Rooney, and I was really happy with that. And I was like, oh, this is a great book. I enjoy reading again. So I tried to go back into it, but then again things happen, and then again I was like, didn't really have time. But in December last year, 2020, I finally decided that we have to change this. We have to change this. I want to get back into reading, properly get back into it, so I can read more and I can absorb all the books that I've always wanted to read, even though I still don't really have time, still really busy. So I started reading a chapter a day. And this is what I'm still doing. Just before I go to bed, I will read a chapter. It might be 10 pages, it might be 50 pages, depending on the day, depending on what chapter it is. Sometimes, obviously, I will read more than one chapter, but I don't go lower than one chapter. So if something happens that I can't read anything that day, I will read 2 chapters the next day. So I'm just kind of catching up on what I missed. But yes, one chapter, and that kind of works out really well when you're really busy, because like, you can always fit one chapter in your day, but like, not everyone can fit a whole book in a day, right? And that used to be me. Like, I used to be able to read a whole book in a day, or like a trilogy in a week. And sorry, it's not me anymore. I'm just way too busy. And I also love consuming all media. Like, you probably might have guessed already, like, I love movies, I love TV shows, I love video games. So like, I will literally consume any type of media. I'm just kind of a big net in terms of that. I just love TV shows, movies, video games, books, everything. I love all stories, like, I always wanted to go on adventures, and and watching things and reading things that allows me to kind of transport myself into these different worlds. It's a form of escapism, I guess. I always yearned for the great adventure, and yeah, books are what allows me to do it. And I think out of all the mediums, books are definitely the one that kind of let your imagination run wild the most. Like, they definitely help with that the most. But yeah, it's been a very long time since I've been able to read a lot of books and share any thoughts on them, because I just wasn't reading. Like, I read, like, maybe the Witcher series, I read some of Game of Thrones in like the past few years. I've read Ready Player One, I think, when it, like, around the time the movie was coming out. I think like a year before the movie came out, something like that, I read that. And I read maybe like kind of like a science book or something. I read Selfish Gene for my course. that's really about it. I haven't really been reading anything else apart from maybe some fan fiction. That's sad. But one chapter a day kicked in, and here we are. And yes, I'm gonna share the books, talk about them, all the books I've read so far this year, and I also include 2 books that I read last year, but that's because they were a part of a trilogy, and I finished the trilogy in January, so I'm just gonna mention those as well. But we're gonna start with the worst, and we're gonna finish with the best book of the year so far. And I have to say, the worst book so far has been Sweet Sorrow by, oh my god, I can't even remember who wrote it. David Nichols. Sweet Sorrow has been it was just really boring. It's supposed to be this contemporary / romance novel about people who just graduated high school, the like kind of summer between high school and, you know, whatever you're gonna do after that. Like most people go to university, some people start a job, etc. And it's about this boy that he knows he failed. He knows he failed the exams, and he doesn't really know what to do with himself. And then he stumbles upon, kind of by accident, this group of kids his age, who all just graduated, who are doing this like Shakespeare play over the summer. It's like a kind of like a drama boot camp, and he meets this girl that he kind of falls for. And I thought it would be really interesting because it was on the like back of the book, it was compared to Normal People, and I really like Normal People by Sally Rooney. But it wasn't anything like it. It was supposed to be like nostalgic and give you this very summery vibe, and, you know, make you kind of transport yourself back to the year after high school and kind of this your last full summer, how you spend it. No. This book was just plain boring. It was really, really boring. It took me like half a year to read it, just because I thought I would just do a DNF. I thought I would do a did not finish, kind of left it, put it back on the shelf. But then eventually I was like, no, I'm just gonna power through it and I'm gonna finish. And I finished it around, I think, January or February this year. I just didn't like it. I loved the ending. That's the only thing I quite enjoy. Obviously, I'm not gonna spoil it if you do want to read the book, but the ending was very, very interesting. And maybe not interesting, that's probably the wrong word. I would say it was just very compelling, and it was not exactly what I expected, but it was perfect for this story. This ending was absolutely perfect, and it really showed how nothing ever really goes the way you plan it to go or the way you expect it to go. And I think that was absolutely awesome. That was a great thing. But the rest of the book was just boring, and it was, I don't know, it was trying to be very philosophical with like its Shakespeare quotes and stuff like that, but it just didn't get me. So that's the worst book, just because of its boringness. And it wasn't too bad in terms of the plot. I just didn't really care about it, and I kind of forgot what happened in it already. So that just says it all, right? But yeah, I don't have this book here, by the way. I left it in Poland. So I'm just gonna you probably have been seeing like a thing around here. Maybe the cover, just so you can find that book later. But the next book has the same thing in common with Sweet Sorrow. And that is a great ending. It has an awesome ending. Honestly, the last few pages of this book were amazing, jaw-dropping. Especially like literally the last page. Chef's kiss. It was great. And the book I'm talking about is Tender is the Flesh. This is the Polish version of the book, because sometimes I buy books in Poland and I will read them in Polish. It's a very, very pretty book. I mean, it's a bit grotesque, but the cover's really pretty, and same with just the inside of the book is very, yeah, like as you can see, it's very, very, very nicely made. Yeah, I showed you that already, and even this bit, it's just very, very nice. In the Polish translation, they called it A Delicious Corpse, which I think is even a better name for it, that tender is the flesh, but both quite fit. And yes, this book made me so angry. You have no idea just how angry this book made me. I was so frustrated while reading this book. Actually, this is the quickest read this year. Like, I finished this in less than a week. I mean, for some people, this would be a one-day read. But as we already mentioned, I didn't have time. But still, under a week, that was quite quick for me. And yeah, it was a very quick read. To be fair, it has quite big letters. I don't know if you can see that, but the letters are quite big. There's a lot of kind of light on the pages as well. And sometimes like there's just like blank pages as well. But this book, oh god, where do I even start? So first of all, this book is about cannibalism, and that sounds interesting, right? It's about a world where apparently you can't eat animals because of this virus. You can't eat animals anymore, so apparently people turn to eating other people. So there's like this whole like factories, like butchers that kill people and for meat, and it kind of works the exact same way as like with pigs and cows, but it's humans. And the idea, absolutely amazing. What an awesome idea that is. I was so intrigued by this book. I really wanted to love it because I just thought it would be a great kind of start point for a conversation, for a discussion. Something interesting, right? No, this book just wants to be gross. It wants to gross you out. It wants to make you gag and just, I don't know, cringe all the way through. This book was written by a person. I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems like it while you read it. It was written by someone who has a very strong blood and like flesh meat kind of fetish. I swear to God, there's one scene in this book. It's a sex scene that honestly did make me gag, and I wanted to throw the book because it was just so disgusting. And I did not understand why the writer had the need to talk about this and present me with this scene. It had nothing to do with the plot. It was just disgusting. And by the way, this book doesn't really have much plot. It's mostly just descriptions of how people are killed, and then how the meat is worked and turned into like a product, and that is it. That's pretty much it. This is what the book describes. There's some things about the character and his past, but mostly it's about the meat, really. And I hated it, especially that this book doesn't explain why this situation is like it is. It tries to convince you that it's like that everyone just was okay with it, that everyone was just okay with eating people, which I don't understand, because apparently in this world vegetables still exist and plants, and people still eat vegetables, but they also all eat humans. And I'm like, sorry, but veganism? Like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. Why not turn to veganism if you can't eat animals? Even though like the whole explanation why you can't eat animals, also complete bullshit, sorry. But it's complete bullshit, and I will stand by it. It was just completely kind of sucked out of a thumb, it made no sense. This book makes no sense. That's the biggest point. That's the biggest takeaway. It makes no sense. The only good thing about it is that it's not boring. Like, it keeps you going. You think that maybe something interesting is gonna happen, that maybe next chapter is not gonna be just about the meat. And it's so gruesome that, like, in a way, you want to find, like, in a very twisted way, you want to find out what else the author's gonna talk about in this book. But I wouldn't recommend it. It is interesting. It is a very weirdly fun read, but not really. Mostly frustrating. And the ending is phenomenal, but that's literally just the last page. The rest of it is just bullshit, and I didn't like it. So that was the second worst book I read this year. But it was better than Sweet Sorrow because it wasn't boring, and that's the only plus to this book. The next book I'm gonna talk about is, I think, oh, do we go there? Do we go there or not already? I think so. If we're ranking them from worst to best, I think the next bunch of books we're going to talk about is the Grishaverse trilogy, the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I read all of them now. I did say I might make a separate video about what I thought about the books in comparison to the TV show. Because yeah, I've read all of them. These are actually English versions, because yes, I also read books in English. It's just sometimes I will read them in Polish, sometimes in English. It depends on where I get them. But yes, I've read all of these. I also read the Demon in the Woods, because it was like short story, the Darkling prequel. I read that as well because it was kind of in the back of Ruin Rising, and I was really interested because the Darkling is my favorite character. But I that's why I didn't read them a long time ago, because I knew they would be a bit childish. I mean, they're very young adult. They have a love triangle. They were okay. They were interesting. The plot was fun to follow. They are, they're good books. They're good books. They're decent books, especially if you are like a young adult, teenager. I think you would love these. But as an adult, I saw a lot of flaws in these books, and I might make a video to talk about them in more detail. But spoiler alert to that video if you're planning on watching it or not, whatever. If you don't want to watch it, if you want a quick summary, I really hate Mal in these books. Mal is just the worst character ever. I don't know, like, just his character is dumb, and I hated him. The Darkling I still enjoyed, but yeah, these books not the best, but a really fun read. And I mean, I love the Grishaverse. I love the world building in these. Just the plot and the characters, especially. Plot is also more or less okay. There's some plot holes in that, but characters wasn't a fan of. I literally didn't really like any character in this. Like, my favorites were the Darkling and Nikolai, but maybe like Genya. I like Genya. Genya and David I quite enjoy, but like in general, wasn't very attached to any of the characters. They're not the best. And yeah, let's just move on. Maybe I'll talk about them in more detail in another video. And smoothly, we're gonna move to another trilogy, which I don't have here because I read it on in an ebook version on an e-reader. But that trilogy was actually awesome. I loved it. So we're kind of moving to really good books right now. Although it was really weird towards the end. But what I'm talking about is the Northern Lights trilogy, or his Dark Materials trilogy. There's also a TV show, which I highly recommend. I love the TV show. But yes, his Dark Materials trilogy, absolutely awesome. I've never read it before. That's the trilogy that I was reading kind of last year, and then finished the last book in around January. What's it called? The Amber Spyglass, I think, the last one. It's been a while since I read them, but I have to say I love them. I powered through them. I read them really quickly, and they were great. They were great. They had a great story, an amazing world building. I absolutely love the fact that kind of the kid's main goal, this is another spoiler, is to kill God. Like, hell yeah, do that. Good job, keep going. I love all of the characters. I thought they were all well built, and they all had, charisma, and they were fun to follow, and yeah, they were really good books overall. I have maybe one thing that I wasn't a fan of, and that was the ending of the last book. Who knows? They know there's some weirdly sexual scenes in that book, and I just wasn't comfortable reading about 12, 13-year-olds doing certain things, and just there's a lot of metaphors in there that they just made me really uncomfortable as an adult reading these books. And hopefully when a child reads them, they probably wouldn't recognize this, but I did. and it made me really uncomfortable. And yeah, I just wasn't the biggest fan of the ending. Although I think the ending itself is it's lovely because it's sad, it's kind of bittersweet, and I really like that. But generally, the third book took me by surprise. It was incredibly weird. It was so weird. I felt as if I was reading something that someone who was really, really high wrote. It just Mulefa. What even are Mulefa? It's just ridiculous. The last book is ridiculous. Like the first two, they're like kind of grounded in a way. They're quite straightforward, and then the last book comes in, and it's just like warp, like just like a sledgehammer to your head. It's just like, here, all these things, absorb them. And I was like, okay, I will, but I'm very confused. It was a great book though, and I would definitely recommend the trilogy, and I would also really recommend the TV show. I'm waiting for season 3. I can't wait. I think it's gonna be great. I love the TV show. I love the books. Highly recommend. The next book I'm gonna talk about, because we're, I think, in the second place now. I don't think I read anything else apart from this book that I'm going to show you right now, and my spoiler, and my the final book, my number 1 this year so far. I'm trying to think if there was anything else, but I don't think so. I think this is the last book that I've read. So this, like the second to last book that I've read, and that is Priory of the Orange Tree. Again, this is a Polish version, and this is the kind of the one that's split into volumes. I also read volume 2. It's I read the whole thing. It's just over there. There you go. It's standing there. But I'll show you the volume 1, and it's beautiful. I have to say, this is one of the most beautiful covers I have ever seen. Honestly, look at that dragon right there. Like, how beautiful is that? I can't get over the fact how beautiful this book is. I literally use it as a display piece. It just kind of stands there usually in that spot, and it's just so pretty. But this is a great book. It's very long. It was like, in the 1 volume version of it, it's over 1,000 pages long. This, I think each one is around 600 pages. Yeah, 550. Yeah, something like that. So it's probably like around 1,100 pages long. In total, and it's a wild read, but I loved it from the first chapter. I love the introduction of the characters. I love how the characters develop, and how the story develops. And it's incredibly interesting world and interesting story, and it's an awesome book. If you haven't read it, go read it. It's an maybe I should say it's an epic fantasy. By the way, yeah, this is an epic fantasy book about a world, kind of torn apart world, where one part of the world hates dragons, like despises them, and then the other part of the world worships them. If that's not a great idea for a story, I don't know what is. We love this book. We love this book, and we also love representation in it. There's characters in this book who are bi, gay, heterosexual as well. There's all kinds of people. There's a lot of people of color in this book. Just the representation in this book is awesome, and it's not in your face, which currently I'm not a big fan of reading books that are only about being gay or, being a person of color. Like, they're incredibly needed, and I love them, and they have their place in the literature, but currently I just love books that have people of color, have people who represent the LGBT plus community, but they're just that. They're normal characters, and they are treated like normal characters. They are treated like normal people, and I love that, because I think we should have a lot more of that. I think we should just have, every book should just treat all of their characters equally, and have this representation. Like in this book, have representation, but make it seamless, make it normal. And I love that in this book, especially. Absolutely love it. There's different kinds of relationships in this book. They're all amazing, and they all very deserving of a spot in this book, and it's just made so seamless and so natural that just a massive fan, and I hope more books are like this. And I think we are going towards that trend now. But yeah, this book, awesome book, highly recommended. And now we arrive to my number one choice for a book of this year so far. I mean, it's June. I'm still gonna read a lot more books this year. But so far, this is the best book I have read, and I really want to read a lot more contemporary novels now after reading this book. I read it in January, so it's been a while, but oh god, that was an amazing book. You have no idea what I'm talking about, I am aware. A very, very quick maybe hint, maybe if you want to guess what kind of book it is. It was a finalist in the 2020 Booker Awards competition, and it's about AIDS and the kind of AIDS pandemic, in a way, epidemic of AIDS in 1980s in America, in Chicago specifically. Of course, I'm talking about The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. What a book, honestly, what a book. I don't have it here, I can't show it to you, but I will make a little insertion here of the cover. Unfortunately, I don't have it here because I left it in Poland with my best friend who also wanted to read it, and I borrowed her that book. It's a beautiful book, honestly. That book broke me in a way, but also made me appreciate everything I have, and also just friendships and relationships. And oh, what a beautiful book. Like on the back it says that it's a story about love, friendship and hate in the times of an epidemic, in these uncertain times. And yes, that's basically what the book is. In the book you follow this character called Yates, I believe. I've read it a long time ago, but yeah, I think it's definitely Yates. And then there's a kind of two storylines. There's 1980s and then there's 2015, I believe. And the character you follow in the second timeline is Fiona, but she also feeds into the 1980s storyline. They are connected. And oh god, what a beautiful book. Like, I find it really hard to talk about it without crying, especially the scene that kind of broke me. There's one scene I was holding really well throughout the entire book. I was doing so well. I was like, I'm not gonna cry. This is going well. And then there was one scene, like, I think second to last chapter. I'm just gonna say one word, and if you read this book, you're gonna know which scene I'm talking about. Cat. The scene with the cat. That broke me. The last scene with the cat, that's what I'm talking about. It broke me, absolutely broke me. I was doing so well, and then I was suddenly sobbing. Was sobbing, and I was an emotional wreck towards the rest of throughout the rest of the book. I was just a wreck, and I highly recommend this book. I can't say enough praise for this book. It's beautifully written in a incredibly simple language. Language used there is very simple. The story is very simple. The story follows normal people. Everything in this book seems incredibly realistic and natural. Like, these characters could really exist. It's almost like if you're reading a true story. Obviously it's not, it's fiction, but it feels like you're reading a true story. It feels like you're reading about real people, and the things they do, it doesn't seem like there's stuff that are just made up. It seems like this is how a person would act in this situation. And I think that is amazing. That is such a great achievement, because I don't know many books which really feel so realistic and natural and organic in a way. And this book achieves this perfectly. And it's also very, very capturing and interesting and just and emotional. But if it says anything to you, the first chapter of this book happens at a funeral. That's how the book starts, with a funeral. What a great opener. I mean, I don't know how the author Rebecca Mackay came up with this, but that's an amazing opener. It grabs you from the very first sentence, and you want to keep going, and from the very beginning that it's gonna hurt. You know that this is not gonna end well. You know what AIDS was, you or is still. You know what it comes with, and this is about a gay community, so this cannot end well. But I've heard this Polish YouTubers describe it, and shout out to them, bestsellerki, Polish YouTubers, love them. I've heard them describe it as waiting, that you're waiting. Throughout the book, you're waiting as the characters are waiting for the inevitable. And I think that's such a beautiful way to describe it, and that is how you feel reading this book. From at least, like, maybe the latest from like halfway through the book, but probably not even, probably from like earlier on than that. You just feel like you're with these characters. Like you're part of their friendship group, and you're waiting with them. You're waiting for the thing to happen. You're waiting for that kind of bomb to go off, and you know it's going to happen. But the way it's written is just so beautiful and shocking in some ways, and very, very emotional and sad. It's very sad in the end, very sad, but also very wholesome and positive in other ways. And I just cannot recommend this book enough. It's an amazing book. If you can get your hands on it, read it, because I know it's not very popular, especially in Britain, maybe in America a bit more, but I haven't seen many people on like the British American booktube talk about it, but they should. It's an awesome book. It's a beautiful book, and it sparks conversation, and I think everyone should read it, because especially people who maybe might struggle with kind of getting into the mindset of someone who's not heterosexual, straight, who, have a trouble kind of understanding LGBT plus community. I think this book would be a great way to enter into that world and open your mind to certain things, because it really treats these people like people. It treats them like human beings, and it's not about them being gay. This book is definitely not about this character's sexuality in a way, even though it's a big part of it. It's not about it, and I think, yeah, anyone could enjoy this book if they wanted, if they went to it with an open mind. I think it would open up their mind even more. I think it could widen horizons and really start up a conversation and just kind of make you more human. I've definitely felt that when I read this book. I felt a lot more human and a lot more empathetic, and that, I think, that is an amazing thing that a book can do. But yeah, I think I should be finishing now, because this is it. This is how many books I've read. I know it's not many. I know it's maybe as many as some people read in like a month, or maybe even less than that, but a lot of them are very chunky books. Like, this thing is over 1,000 pages long, right? It's a big book. And same with, there's like a whole trilogy there, so, and 2 trilogies really, so there's quite a few. So, like, to count it, how many did I read? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, around 10 books. Maybe not amazing for some people, but one chapter a day, and we keep going. And just for a quick kind of reiteration, what I'm reading at the moment, I am about halfway through this book, which written by Christoph Galfard, which is Universe in Your Hand in the English version. This is a Polish cover of it, but Universe in Your Hand, an amazing book. I would also highly recommend it. I haven't finished it yet, but it's basically about universe. So it's kind of about physics. It's like a very simple explanation of physics, really well written, kind of uses your imagination a lot to explain a lot of concepts. And this guy is, the author is, he was a student of Stephen Hawking's, so he knows his stuff, but he puts it in like a awesome way and very accessible way. So I would also recommend this. And I'm currently on page want to say 233. So right there, I'm reading this. I'll probably read one more chapter today before I go to sleep. But yeah, I will highly recommend this. This is my current read, and my next read is going to be The Invisible Life of Adi LaRue, which is standing right there. And yeah, this is gonna be my next read. And I also have the beautiful, sorry, I'm gonna reach for them, the beautiful editions of Six of Crows duology, which I'm gonna read after that. So this is my current TBR, my current to be read list. Yeah, these two are coming after Adi LaRue because I wanted to have a small break from the Grishaverse. So we'll read them after I read Adi LaRue, The Invisible Life of Adi LaRue, and after I finish The Universe in Your Hand. Because this just feels like a great kind of midway point in the year. Like I usually read mostly fiction books, but this is non-fiction. This is what's it called? Like a science. I forgot what it's called in English. Oh my god. Oh well, it's like a sciencey book, but like accessible, and I love it because yeah, I love science, as we all know. But I'm more of a biologist myself, but I love finding out about these things. I knew some of it, obviously, from my time at school and stuff, but this really expands your knowledge a lot in such a simple way. So would definitely recommend it. But yeah, if you stayed this long, thank you. Subscribe if you want to, give a like if you want to. If not, that's your decision. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening to me. Comment below if you read any of these books, or if you read the books that I'm about to read and you have something to say about them. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. And I will see you in the next video. It will hopefully come a lot sooner than this video. So it took me a while. I'm sorry. Anyways, I'll see you later, I guess. Thanks again for watching. Bye!